guys for your time. I'm at the outset of my career here, so I'm very privileged to be in the presence of greatness in the room. So my topic today is on the hidden costs of mild traumatic brain injury in young adults, and more specifically, our college-age students. So I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, but we had a real problem in this country with traumatic brain injury. So the most recent numbers, in 2013, the CDC reported 2.8 million traumatic brain injuries. These were ones that just showed up at the ER. So we think there are many more that have not been reported. We know about 330,000 children, age 19 and younger, experience concussions or traumatic brain injury, were treated for those in 2012. Now, being struck by or against an object is the leading cause of traumatic brain injury in our older teenagers and our young adults. Previously, it used to be motor vehicle accidents. Now it's being struck by or against an object, which is typically related to sports injuries. We also think, researchers think, that approximately half of mild traumatic brain injuries may be unreported for various reasons. In sports, for example, they may be unreported because the individuals want to get back to play as quickly as possible. And we know, of course, that their cognition is going to be impacted if they experience a traumatic brain injury. So my particular area of research is in cognition, so I became very interested in looking at traumatic brain injury and how it impacts cognition. So in a recent study that I conducted, we actually recruited some individuals from Arizona State University at the time, 35, with self-reported history of traumatic brain injury. They were all about college-aged freshmen and sophomores. And we actually, interestingly, thought we were going to have a problem getting individuals with a history of traumatic brain injury from a university setting. And in later studies that we've done across the university and surveys that we've collected, we found out that about 1/3 to 35% of university students definitely know that they've had a concussion, one or multiple concussions. For this particular group of individuals, we gave them a battery of assessments that measure things like language processing, memory, attentional abilities, and higher order cognition, specifically executive function. So these are things like their ability to problem solve and reason through more complex types of tasks. So first I'll just talk about their self-reported symptoms here at the time of their injury. So 46% of them told us that they lost consciousness on average about 3.5 minutes at the time of the head injury. 74% said that they actually sought medical attention, the others did not. When I did ask them what type of medical attention, oftentimes they said, I saw the sports trainer, and the sports trainer just told me not to play for a couple weeks until I felt better. And the symptoms that they report here are pretty consistent with kind of the Mayo classifications of symptoms at the time of head injury. So you see a lot of things like dizziness, headache, loss of balance. They could have experienced one or multiple symptoms at the time of injury. What's interesting though is we asked them, what are you still experiencing now? So these individuals were about 20 months post-injury. So we're looking at between 1 and 2 years after their initial injury. And 30 of the 35 said, I'm still experiencing one or more of these symptoms. Although I will say in the other 5, there's probably a little bit of problems with awareness. So what we tend to see here is of these individuals, many of them are still telling us, I'm still not able to maintain my attention for a long period of time. I'm having difficulty switching my attention between different types of tasks. I feel easily distracted in my classes, especially when there's people whispering behind me. I can't focus in on the lecture. I'm having difficulty recalling recent memories, like the lecture I should have just been studying for the test I need to take tomorrow, or retrieving long-term memories. So they're really having some issues here that are persistent. They're telling us that they're persistent, even many months after those initial head injuries. In terms of the overall performance on our battery of assessments that we gave them, so in the interest of time, I won't go through each one, but what we tend to see is that when the tasks are a little bit simpler and more structured, they tend to do fairly well. They do as well as their healthy control counterparts. When the tasks become more complex, more open-ended, less structured, that's when we see their performance fall apart, really. So when you take that structure away from them, they really struggle, which is important because the academic environment is not structured. They have to really learn to manage that on their own. So some basic conclusions that we saw is that their performance in general was fairly consistent with the performance on the assessments was fairly consistent with things that they would report to us. So anecdotally, we heard things like, well, I used to be able to get A's and B's in high school really easily, and now I'm really struggling to get C's. I don't understand why. Or they're having a really hard time managing day-to-day life. So I had one individual who was a competitive cheerleader. She told me she had at least 4 concussions that she could remember, but she thinks it might have been 5 or 6. She wasn't exactly sure. She was 2 hours late to her first appointment with me and a week early to her second. So clearly struggling to manage day-to-day types of tasks like maintaining her schedule. And we also see that, as I mentioned, they tend to do better when the environment is very structured, when they're given kind of simpler tasks, but they really do struggle with the more complex, more open-ended kind of problem-solving and reasoning types of tasks, which are very important and necessary at the higher levels of education. And so we know that we really rely on these higher level abilities to navigate an academic environment, whether it's just managing your schedule, getting from your classes, reading for academic purposes. We know reading can be highly impacted by traumatic brain injury. It tends to be one of the symptoms that's slower to resolve, if at all. And they also struggle with things like making sure they can attend to a lecture in a noisy lecture hall, while taking notes and listening to the professor speak. Right? So a lot of these things are impacted in our younger adults. And so, I'll let this video play, but I think we're becoming definitely more aware of the dangers of concussion and how it can impact academics, but there are still some kind of bad practices. I don't know if you can play this video at all.
Yeah, it won't play.
It won't play? Okay. So this was a recently leaked video of football practice where the coaches are having the players run drills and they're kind of standing far apart on the football field and just running at each other helmet to helmet. So that's their football practice. So thank you guys for your time and for listening.